long as I was going after the crooks that didn't have badges, I was everybody's hero.
Vic, it's good to see you. I like your bank robber outfit, your turquoise shirt. Looks like you're about to hold up a Whole Foods for some kombucha.
Let me tell you about this shirt. A dear friend of mine gave me this shirt. It's got pearl snap buttons on it. It's Western cut. Blake Erskine Jr. in Austin, a lawyer with the firm of Erskine and Blackburn, gave me this shirt a few years ago, and I just love it. Only wear it on special occasions, and
Great shirt, man.
I just thought I'd wear it today and do a shout out to Blake Erskine for giving it to me. Blake and I have tried cases together. Blake is a fine lawyer. His partner, Mark Blackburn, is a fine lawyer too. Matter of fact, our Austin office is in their building.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we have staff members. We lease part of their building, about a third of it. And that's where James is. James Catazzaro, another fine lawyer. God, I love James.
Fine lawyer and a fine
lawyer. So Blake gave me this. But while I'm talking, you talk about bank robber. Our last episode that aired Thursday, when I was talking about the COVID virus and everybody getting out in public, please wear your mask. Unless you're going in a hospital, it doesn't have to be one of those, surgical masks. I hated that thing because as soon as I put it on, I realized I had bad breath,
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the tell. So Italy has Jesus and the Netherlands now has Vic. Listen to this. Listen to this, man. You're getting big there in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Well, I used to hang out in Amsterdam,
Hey.
Back when I used to have money before the IRS changed the law, made it retroactive, and took it away from me. Just part of the conspiracy, part of the deep state. And that's the truth.
It's actually the truth. So check this one out. This is from Toby. He wrote in from the Netherlands just a couple days ago. He said, just wanted to say thanks, Mr. Feazell. I saw the documentary, and you really gave me back my trust in mankind. Someone who stands for the truth with a high cost. I'm not an American, so sorry for my English. Hey! But thanks, Toby. Thanks for writing that in. That's really sweet of him.
Thank you, Toby. I mean, that means the world to me. It really does. I appreciate that so much. And listen to our podcast, share us with your friends, and keep listening. And get everybody else in Amsterdam. And well, he doesn't live in Amsterdam. He lives in a little town outside of Amsterdam, I think, because I looked at the map when that came in.
Yeah.
And his city, but it is in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what else is really cool, Vic? A dude by the name of Doug Swanson. Remember Doug?
I remember Doug. What is that episode 36 and 37?
37 and 38.
37 and 38.
Yes.
I was half right.
So it's probably good we give him a shout out because his book, Cult of Glory, came out last week. So
it did.
To Doug. And one thing that I think it was you found the article, Vic, even before the book came out, it was already making societal changes.
I know. We're going to talk about that some more on our next episode, but
next one,
it's already making changes. Oh, we can tell what happened.
Yeah,
but we'll talk about it some more later. Tell what happened, John.
Well, there was a statue of a Texas Ranger that was in the airport, right?
Love Field, downtown Dallas. It used to be the only airport in Dallas before they opened that huge one, DFW. All the airports used to be small. Love Field was small. Mueller in Austin was small before we went out to Bergstrom, and now it's Bergstrom International Airport because, man, Austin has exploded in population. Well, so did Dallas-Fort Worth. But Love Field is famous because Love Field is where Lyndon Johnson was sworn in as president on Air Force One after JFK was assassinated in Dallas.
Crazy. But either way, so his book has been exposing a lot of the truth of the Rangers, the good and the bad. And it turns out the statue they had up there of this one Texas Ranger, he was a little racist. So they took the statue down.
Yeah. I don't want them to melt it down or anything. I hope it ends up in a museum. I hope a lot of these statues, even the Confederate statues, end up in museums, you know?
Not like
So
Indiana
that,
Jones. It belongs in a museum. It's not like Indiana Jones.
it belongs in a museum. It does. So people can go and see it and read about it and make up their own minds. But it shouldn't be in the airport welcoming visitors to Dallas when this guy was a known racist and would pistol whip people. So not a good example. Yeah.
Oh, boy. Oh,
Yeah. You have to put everything in context, you know, and that's just the way life was then. But that doesn't make it right.
right. Especially now.
And I got to say, there were good Texas Rangers in the past and in the present.
Mhm.
Just like the police, you know, it doesn't take many bad apples to spoil the barrel. And we just need to change our hearts and change police training
Boom. From the foundation up.
from the foundation up. Not throw the baby out with the bathwater, not disband all the police departments, you know, not fire everybody in blue. No, that would be opening us up to every criminal in the United States. And there are criminals here. And we need that protection. We just don't need to be abused by the people that are supposed to be protecting us.
Well said, sir.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Well said. Well, Vic, we had promised a while ago that we were going to get into talking about a certain individual. And Mr. Walter Smith, Vic. Remember Walter Smith?
I do. Oh, Wally. My friend Walter Smith. No,
Well,
he's not my friend. He was never my friend.
He's not your friend.
He's not my friend.
I found an article, dude, from April 17th, 1991. The title of it being Feazell had a reputation as dishonest, judge says. Ooh.
Ooh. Walter Smith calling me dishonest. Oh my God.
Especially now it's 2020 and we know just what he was like.
Yeah. For folks that don't know, for folks that are listeners outside of Waco, because only about 20% of our listeners are in Waco.
Less
Less than 20%. Wow.
Yeah.
So we're really getting global now.
Yeah.
But Walter Smith was the federal judge here in Waco.
Right.
I first met Walter Smith when he was still a lawyer, before he was ever a federal magistrate or anything. He got the job as federal magistrate after Reagan got appointed, simply because Walter was about the only Republican in town.
Is that right?
Yeah. Or at least the only lawyer back then that would admit he was a Republican, because Texas was Democratic then. We didn't have that blue and red stuff back then. It was just Democrat. And he was tall. He was slim. He was good looking. He had a decent voice. He wore a cowboy belt that said Walt on the front. But even then, he had a reputation that he couldn't keep his pecker in his pants.
Oh.
And that's what ultimately got him taken off the bench.
Right.
Because he groped nearly every woman in the federal courthouse and got away with it for a very long time, until some of them complained, and then they had to complain again. And then some lawyers got involved, some people with some courage, because it took courage to go up against that man, because he was very powerful.
Yeah.
And he was friends with all the people that came after me, Colonel Jim Adams, and the rest of them that came, Ron Boyder. And we'll talk about some of them as we go through this article. But yeah, this article is from 1991 during the Below trial. So
Right.
this was after I was found not guilty.
Right.
Now, Judge Nallen, the federal judge in Austin, who presided over my criminal case, he mentioned one time to me and Gary Richardson that he had never had a case before that another federal judge took so much interest in, because Walter was leaving the bench in Waco and driving to Austin nearly every day and sitting in Nallen's chambers and listening to the trial over the intercom.
Really?
Really. Not only that, sometimes he would be out in the hall talking to witnesses who are about to testify against me. Yeah.
What?
Walter had a dog in the fight. Walter didn't like me because I helped George Allen get elected when he ran for state district judge. Walter Smith had been appointed by our first ever Republican governor to be the judge of the 54th District Court in the middle of a term after Carl Anderson took retirement. Carl Anderson was the judge that swore me in after I passed the bar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I passed the bar, got my scores on a Saturday, graduated on a Saturday. Monday morning, I was down in front of Carl Anderson, Judge Anderson, saying, "Swear me in." He swore me in. I still went down to the big swearing in down at the Supreme Court, but he swore me in, and I said, "Now appoint me on a case." And 10 days later, I tried my first jury trial and won it.
And coming in hot.
My book, Rhino, Sharks, and Unicorns that I wrote?
I do. That was a good book.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Well, the character in there, Dieta Pepsi,
Yes.
and the trial that Mace did with Dieta Pepsi is basically sort of a parody of my trial, my first trial, that Carl Anderson appointed me on. Her name was not Dieta Pepsi. I made that up. But yeah, that was my first trial. And if you recall, when we were talking a while back about the meeting at the Ramada Inn, the motel conspiracy conception, the list that was given to Charles Duncan had George Allen's name on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I had helped George Allen beat Walter Smith, and they still had a grudge about that. And because see, if Walter had been on the bench, we'd have never had that Lucas grand jury.
Right.
Because the judge actually calls in the grand jury, not me. I have no power to call in a grand jury. Now, once they're recessed, I can decide, how long they're going to sit up there and then, ask them when to come back and all that. But I cannot impanel a grand jury. And it was Judge George Allen that impaneled the Lucas grand jury.
Right. Now, didn't he even get it extended once, but you couldn't get extended a second time? Isn't that what it was?
Right. George, he, Ned Butler and I, and maybe even Jim Maddox, I cannot recall, because I had already been talking to Attorney General Maddox about this. But I know Ned Butler, he was one of my special assistant DAs for special projects, big murders. And I remember that we went and talked to him, and maybe Maddox did too. And George Allen is the one who brought that grand jury in and impaneled them, not to hear any other cases, only to be a special grand jury on Henry Lee Lucas. And they didn't like that. They wanted to find something on George too. And George extended that grand jury for us once.
Right.
But then when we wanted him to do it the second time, by then he saw the heat that was on me. He was hearing that the FBI was after me, even though it wasn't true. Charles Duncan had gone over there trying to talk to him. Charles Duncan had talked to his court staff, telling George Allen's court staff that the FBI was investigating me, when we know that it wasn't true. Even Ron Border testified in the Below trial that that wasn't true, that the FBI wasn't involved until months later. Right. And the only reason they got involved was because of the public outcry that Duncan created.
Right.
The feds came in the beginning, couldn't find anything on me, and had to leave. That's the Justice Department policies. Unless there's a public outcry.
Ta-da.
Well, Colonel Adams says we can get the public outcry.
The colonel.
That's
the colonel.
The colonel. The colonel said we can get the public outcry. Colonel Jim Adams. And that's when he had Boyder and the Waco Police Department police advisor, Attorney Bill Johnston, meet with him at met with this reporter at the Holiday Inn and gave him that list. And we've got an episode somewhere where we go over that list because Gary Richardson and I got that list through all our discovery. And there was George Allen's name.
It's amazing you got all that stuff in Discovery that they didn't destroy that. Like it's mind-blowing some of the stuff that we've been going through with these episodes that still exists, like his handwritten notes. It's stunning that it still exists. I don't know why they didn't destroy it.
I don't either. They were so dishonest in every other way. I'm surprised Duncan kept a single note. I bet they're all instructed now not to keep notes, to destroy them immediately, because they don't want a lawyer getting a hold of it later.
Yep.
But you know, Jonathan, looking back, and even during that time, part of the reason I was so gutsy is because I could just kind of see and feel God's hand in all of it. And I just sort of had a protection. I wish that protection had been extended to my dog Spanky.
Yeah.
And to my little boy who it traumatized. And to my ex-wife who had traumatized. Poor old Bernie was traumatized as well, but she's very strong. She was gutsy. You know, she stuck with me through all of that. It was just because both of us had been through, we both had PTSD after all of that was over.
I imagine so.
I got therapy and she didn't. And I couldn't handle the drama anymore. And I still care for her deeply. I do. But, you know, they say the third time's a charm.
Yeah.
And Bernie was my second wife. And my present wife, and she doesn't like for me to say her name because she's a very private person. But, boy, I did right this time. This one's going to make it. We've been married a little over 20 years now. And yeah, that long, Jonathan. She doesn't look that old. I mean, you know, you'd think I married her when she was 12. She looks that young. But she's a yoga instructor and does Pilates and all that. And is very healthy, eats a very healthy diet, knows how to breathe, works on her posture, meditates. And we're both very spiritual people. And I love her with all my heart. But I still care for Bernie, and I respect her courage, and she really stuck with me where a lot of partners would have just crumbled. Man, she went to battle for me.
She was a fighter out there, man.
She was. She likes to pick fights. Sometimes I wish, and not with me anymore, but with other people. Sometimes I wish she wouldn't.
You know.
But that's her path. And sometimes people have called me asking me to get her not to say this or take that off of her blog and blah. And I got to say, guys, I got no control over Bernadette Feazell. She is a free spirit. She is a force of nature. And I don't agree with everything she puts in her blog because I'm more of a Gandhi type now myself. But I recommend it. And federal judge Walter Smith was the only live witness that Belo called. Remember I said I thought they might have called a couple more. They didn't. I checked on that. Right. Matter of fact, this article might even say so. They read some deposition transcripts from a couple other people.
Gotcha. Now, why do you
judge
that? Why do you think they didn't call a lot of live people? Just because you guys were going to call them? So it's like, well, they're going to call them. We'll have our shot then. Or do you think it was just damage control at that point?
I don't know why they did anything they did. They were just kind of confounded and confused.
Yeah.
From what I hear, they were both decent lawyers. They just didn't show it in this case. Gary and I just walked all over them. And the funny thing during the trial, sometimes, especially when I was on the stand and I would finish an answer and I'd look back at them for a question, because when I would answer, I'd look at the jury for my answer, not at the person that asked me the question, because I wanted the jury to hear me.
Right.
And I teach my clients to do that when we go to trial. Talk to that jury. They're the decision makers. Don't worry about that other lawyer. But I was on the stand and I had finished a question and I looked over I'd finished an answer and I looked over for the next question and they were huddled with each other, talking about stuff and didn't even realize I had finished talking. And I looked at them. I looked at the jury. I looked at the judge. Judge went, so I turned to the jury and I just started talking to him about more stuff.
No,
I did.
that's wild, man.
Yeah.
Your answer, they were just checked out.
Yeah.
Out to lunch.
See, Gary's a spiritual man too, sort of different from me. He's a little more fundamentalist, but still a believer and a spiritual guy. I'm more inclusive. I love everybody and every religion, and I've studied every religion. And but I would pray every morning before trial for God to confound the enemy, and He did. I mean, they just showed up and would just trip all over themselves and do the dumbest things. But they called Walter Smith, which was a dumb thing to do, because I believe you've located Gary's cross-examination.
I did.
Yes. Let's post that. Not their bullshit in the beginning, but just the cross-examination. If we can put it on notes to this podcast, let's do that. But for sure, put it on our website. Folks, our website is vicfeazell.com. Go visit our website.
Now, didn't you say with this, you said that this cross-examination, it spread through the courthouse, right? Because it was so crazy that everybody wanted to see it, right? It was passed along like a joking meme would today.
It was before the internet, but copies of his testimony were circulated, and if the word going viral as far as a piece of paper had existed back then, that thing went viral. It was read everywhere. And then after the internet was invented and I had my first personal website, I posted it on there for a long time, and people were downloading it like crazy. I was getting emails from people about it. They were just loving it because a lot of people have been treated really bad by this guy. I mean, a lot of the people that appeared in his courtroom would come out going, man, I smelled alcohol on his breath.
No.
Oh, yeah, man. He was a big drinker. Big drinker. Probably the reason he felt so amorous and thought that all the women loved him, when they didn't. They don't like being groped, guys. Don't do that.
No one likes that. It's funny.
Don't do that unless they really ask you to. And I don't mean, oh, she was asking for it. No, say, please grope me. That kind of stuff. Or if a woman kisses you, and you've got a relationship, but he didn't have a relationship with these women. They were employees of the federal courthouse, and some of them actually quit over it. But one lady had the courage to go forward, and she was made fun of at first and discredited like they always do. Disinformation was put out about her. But then people started taking it seriously, and there were other complaints that surfaced. And finally, the presiding judge and whoever the big decision makers are, they made him just quit. Good. Now he's still drawing full salary for retirement. Federal judges are like royalty in this country. They're appointed for life, and no matter what they do, unless it's a high crime and misdemeanor, and I think this was at least a misdemeanor, but they keep it. They have their salary for life.
That's wild.
Whoa.
Something to look at when we were talking about change.
Yeah, so he was their only live witness. They read testimony from 2 depositions, and I think we'll get to that in the article.
Okay. Cool, man. So let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
I would like to take note that in the article, doesn't he kind of look like Alex Jones? He kind of has an Alex Jones look to him.
He does have an Alex Jones look to him. That just, that kind of craziness behind the eyes. Yeah. Oh, and I do want to say again, I said this in the last episode, that I hold no animosity toward these people.
Yeah.
In the mid-90s, I got down on my knees at the bed one night This was after Bernie and I had divorced, because she wanted to keep hating these people and I didn't.
Yeah.
And I understand. I totally understand. But I couldn't live with it, with that hate, with that anger, because, like we said, anger produces chemicals in your body that are destructive. It's a poison. It will kill you over time, and it's just bad. I got down on my knees and I prayed and I called each and every one of them by name, because I have a good memory, and I forgave them. I forgave them. And anytime I'd get a thought, a negative thought about them, I would shoo that thought out of my mind like I was shooing chickens off the back porch. Don't want it, don't want it, don't want it. Because we can choose. We can decide how we're going to feel about something.
That's true.
We can choose how we're going to look at something and how we want to feel. Most people don't know they have that power. They think, well, if I think it, that's what I am. No, man. Thoughts go across your mind like clouds across the sky. Let it go. Like that Disney song, Let It Go. Wasn't that a Disney song, or was that Let It Snow? I don't know. No, Frozen. I know what I'm talking about. I'm just being funny, trying to be funny. So I forgave them all, and I haven't picked it back up. Now, when I talk about them, what I'm telling is the truth. I don't have any emotion or any negativity tied to it. It's just the truth. And what we're doing here is telling history.
It is.
This is history.
It is, because at the end of the day, you, sir, won the Guinness World Book of Record for the largest libel slander suit in U.S. history. So this
Yes,
is
I did.
built up.
Yeah, thanks to, like I said on the courthouse steps when I was found not guilty, thanks to God and my attorney, Gary Richardson.
God and Gary.
God and Gary, yeah. And yeah. But then, like I always like to say, when you bring it up, I made the Guinness book for that verdict, is that years later, the IRS, with the urging of the media corporations and the urging of the state police, changed the tax code, made it retroactive just to get me.
Snagged
me. I tell you, I'd been buying cars for people like I was Elvis, man, spending money left and right because I didn't think it would ever run out. Well, it did. And so if I ever get rich again, I'm gonna handle it differently.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've forgiven them all, and I wanted to say that before we tear into Walter.
Yeah. Well, let's tear into Walter. Kind of looks like Alex Jones, but let's go. So I'll start the article off. It says, even before former television reporter Charles Duncan came to Waco, Vic Feazell had a reputation for not telling the truth and for being a DA who was on the take. Ooh. The judge said on Tuesday. You're on the take.
I know. And to have a federal judge say that about me, that kind of hurt my feelings, but I took it into account that it was Walter. And I already knew Walter hated me. Walter had already said a bunch of really negative stuff about me.
Right.
I remember once, and this was after he lost the election to Judge Allen. I remember once talking about Lake Waco murder. And I said, I was so concerned about the trial that sometimes I would go, when I was in judge's chambers, I'd go into the closet and pray. And he came out and said, he's just a liar. He's a liar. My office doesn't even have a closet. Well, when I said I go into the closet to pray, that means that I shut my consciousness off to the outside world. Jesus said, when you pray, don't make a show of it.
Yeah.
Don't go out in public and make a show out of praying. He said, go into your closet, close it. And he meant close yourself off. Don't make a show. Do it in private. And that's what I was talking about. I was using the very words of Jesus. But, most people don't know the words of Jesus, even those that hold up Bibles for photo ops and call 2 Corinthians 2. They don't know the words of Jesus. And I wish they would go to the Bible, read the red stuff, and try to practice it. But also keep in mind that a lot of things that Jesus said was metaphor. A lot of things that Jesus said was tongue-in-cheek, And in order to really understand what Jesus said, you kind of have to know Jesus. So have a spiritual relationship, if not with Jesus, at least with a higher power, and it'll help you understand the words. When Jesus said, if your right hand offends you, cut it off, he didn't mean cut off your hand. I mean, when I was 12, 13, 14, I imagine my right hand did a lot of things it shouldn't have done, but I wasn't about to cut it off. And I don't think Jesus wanted me to.
Don't cut off the hand.
Don't cut off the hand. Don't poke out the eye. And even in the Old Testament, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I liked what Gandhi said about that.
Yeah.
When somebody said to him, an eye for an eye, he said, well, that's going to leave a lot of blind people, a lot of one-eyed people in the world. So, yeah, let's be sweet to each other.
True.
Yeah, that was not true. He totally lied about that. I had a reputation for being the people's lawyer. I had a reputation for honesty. I preached in churches around the county every month, even down in Bell County, because I graduated from Mary Hardin Baylor, and I knew a lot of people down there. My undergraduate, one of my degrees, I had multiple majors when I graduated, and one of them was in religion. Mm-hmm. So I knew what I was talking about when I said I go into the closet to pray. So that's what I was talking about, Walter. And this is, it's just totally untrue. Nothing was said negative about me until after the Lucas thing came up. Now, a few of the lawyers in town didn't like me because in the courtroom, I would just mop the floor with them.
You're beating them up. No one likes to get beat.
Yeah, nobody likes getting beat, and some of them to this day hold a grudge. Because I was,
That's true.
That's true, but I'm not going to hold back and not do the best I can do or be the best I can be just because it makes somebody jealous or offends them. And I'm not going to let them win when the facts aren't with them,
True.
And I'm good at telling a story, and I tell stories to the jury, and I do pretty well, and that pissed a lot of people off. So that wasn't true.
So Vic was not on the take then.
Oh, I was never on the take, and there was not even any rumor that I was on the take. If that was true, in September of 1984,
right,
I filled the convention center for an appreciation dinner, raising money for my campaign.
Yeah,
we had, I think we had 2,200 people there.
Jeez,
and in McLennan County, that's a lot of people to show up for one event. And I remember Congressman Bob Pogue said, I loved Bob Pogue. He said, wow, this is more people that I've seen turn out for a politician since Roosevelt came to town.
God. Well, he's probably right.
He was right. And across the hall, the Republicans were having a little get together, and they had maybe 50, 60 over there.
More of a happy hour.
Yeah. And then the Waco paper even got the count wrong. I mean, I have no respect for that newspaper. I don't. Even during my trial, my ex-wife and I were talking about this recently. Even during the criminal trial, we would go back to our little apartment with a mattress on the floor that had been loaned to us by a friend of Gary's down in Austin, so I could have a place to stay. I couldn't even afford a hotel room for that long a time. Gary was paying for his own hotel room out of his pocket. Yeah. And we would go back to the hotel room, and Bernie would call some of her friends, and they'd go, or even the next morning, and everybody in Waco that we talked to, they go, oh, I'm so sorry. It sounds like it's going so bad, blah, blah, blah. And we go, what? No, that's not what was said.
Man, that's crazy.
I know. They were totally misreporting the trial even. Like, they were totally shocked when I was found not guilty. So many people were shocked in Waco when I was found not guilty because the Waco Trib was misreporting. Now, if you wanted to watch Channel 10 or Channel 6, they were covering it too. And they were doing pretty good coverage, but the Waco paper was slanting it in favor of the government. And next podcast, we're going to go over a newspaper article that came out during my trial. We'll do a little preview here. We're going to crack the door open a little about Jan Patterson and give you a preview of what's coming about Assistant U.S. Attorney Jan Patterson.
Right.
Because we're eventually going to have to dedicate 2 or 3 episodes just to her.
Hold on. What is her current role? She's currently something.
I have no idea.
I forgot what it was. Doesn't matter that.
She was a judge for a while, but she couldn't win an election. All her judgeships were appointed, I think. She might have won one election to the Court of Appeals in Austin, but then made the mistake of running for district judge, and she lost.
Oh, wow.
And I'm glad she did. I donated a little money to her, just cause. But and she took it.
Yeah.
But then after the other candidate beat her, I contributed to that candidate to help her retire her campaign debt.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, but the Waco paper, man, all of our friends thought we were just getting kicked around down there, and that was not the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, we were kicking them around just like we did in the Belo trial. Otherwise, that jury wouldn't have come back and said, we're convinced the government tried to frame this man. You know, people in Waco were saying, well, they just didn't meet their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, blah, blah, blah. Not so. Not so. The jury won't come out and say, hey, we think the government tried to frame that man.
Yeah.
If it was just beyond a reasonable doubt.
Really?
If that was the case, we would never have been able to take that same case, all the stuff Charles Duncan said, and march them back across their own goal line. We started on yard 0. We started on our own goal line and had to march them all the way down the field, across their own goal line.
50. And
they returned a verdict for $58 million. And the jury told us afterwards, because we went to the same Ramada Inn that Duncan had his meeting in. The owner of the Ramada Inn gave us the party room and said, come on over after the verdict, whatever, and you can use this room. And we did, and we invited the jury, and a bunch of them showed up.
Oh, that's cool.
And they told me, Gary said, the reason we gave you $58 million is because that's all you asked for. If you had asked for 100, that verdict would have been 100.
Wow.
But, you know, I was happy with what we got. I didn't think I'd ever be able to spend it until they took it away from us.
Brewster's Millions. Remember the movie Brewster's Millions?
I don't think I ever saw that.
With Richard Pryor, where he got all the money, but he had to spend it all in order to get the larger sum. Remember that?
No, I never saw that.
It was a good one.
Hi, I'm Vic Feazell. During these trying times, you might want to just stay home. And at the law offices of Vic Feazell, we understand. That's why we're set up to handle your personal injury claim without you even having to come in. Just give us a call, and we'll take it from there. We can send any paperwork straight to your smartphone or computer. Don't delay, because if we don't put money in your pocket, you don't owe us anything. I'm Vic Feazell.